What's up everyone, NinjaNick333. We're back with the European International Championships of the Pokemon trading card game. We got Tord Reklev on the left. As you can see, he's won a few of these international championships before. And we have Pablo Mesa on the right, the man who's cheated a couple of times on stream recently and normally commentates now because he keeps getting caught doing that. But it looks like he is here trying to actually win a tournament despite that. So we will see if we can get right into the match. Of course, Tord is playing the Gardevoir deck that we know and love on the left. And Pablo is playing Mew VMAX, the deck that we've wished it was dead since it was released. No, I love Mew, but they did print that Drapion card and Path to the Peak. All of these things that are meant to shut off Mew, but Mew just, most of the time now, just plays quad Path to the Peak and a bunch of lost vacuums to get rid of it so that you can use your abilities on your turn and your opponent can't use theirs on their turn. So that is the big key to this matchup, is will Pablo be able to establish and stick the Path to the Peak for long enough for Tord to not be able to use the Psychic Embrace on his Gardevoir EX? Or will Tord just one-shot a Mew VMAX with Zacian that has a Sky Seal Stone on it and take 4 prize cards? You know, the game could quite literally go either way. I do think it's a little more favored for Mew just because it gets going faster and it is a little more consistent. And of course, it is equipped to deal with its own Path to the Peak and of course play it. And, you know, Tord's Gardevoir deck, you know, it doesn't usually start swinging until at least turn 3. Sometimes you can get it going turn 2. But if Pablo can just stick Path to the Peak down turn 1, there's no way that Zacian can attack turn 2. It needs to use its ability in order to put energy on itself in order to get a turn 2 attack with it. So, as we can see, Pablo is just setting up, gets the Battle VIP pass down, getting 2 more benched Pokemon. So now we have 4 in play. That means that the Genesect Vs are able to use their ability to draw until Pablo has 4 cards in hand. Looks like he is deciding whether or not he wants to use maybe an ability first. No, he's got 5 cards in hand. Maybe he's going to play out some of these cards first before he plays that Ultra Ball. Looks like he's actually choosing not to use the Ultra Ball now. Wants to just conserve what's in his hand. At the cost of his setup, you'd think you would want to get all 6 Pokemon in play turn 1. So Tord here on the other side is going to start trying to establish as many Ralts as possible while also getting that Zacian in play, using Roar of the Sword on itself to get an additional energy. So maybe he can do an attach for turn, plus the Roar of the Sword to get 2 energy on the Zacian, so that maybe if he's lucky and gets a Rare Candy Gardevoir EX on the next turn, he could just start swinging for massive amounts of damage. Although he might want to just take it a little more slowly. You don't want to 2-shot a Mew, because if you do, it's going to just Psychic Leap itself back into the deck while still knocking you out, since the Psychic Embrace ability of Gardevoir EX does damage you for every energy you put on it from the discard pile. Generally speaking, Zacian will have very few HP points remaining, so Mew can just copy its own Psychic Leap off of a benched Mew V, shuffle itself back into the deck, effectively healing off all of that damage that's on it. We see Tord is choosing to go for the Mew with Mysterious Tail. He's probably going to be trying to retreat into it and using its ability to try to find a Battle VIP pass. He does have a Penny as well. He could always use Penny to just pick up the Cresselia. It looks like that's what he's choosing to do. That way he can still attach to the Zacian if he gets that on the bench as well. So a little interesting that Tord goes for the Mew instead, but he figures as long as he can hit Battle VIP pass, which he does, he essentially gets 3 Pokemon off that first level ball instead of just 1. Because he could have gone for just a Ralts, but, you know, now he has the Battle VIP pass, he gets the 2 more Pokemon. Of course, when I go for this play, I always miss the Battle VIP pass. I've almost thought about cutting Battle VIP pass completely from Gardevoir because of how much I dislike it in the deck. I never see it turn 1, and I always see it every other turn after that. Which you can always refinement it away. with the Kirlia's ability to discard and draw 2, but that always feels like a bad time for me if I'm, you know, trying to research into a bunch of resources I need, and instead of finding the Kirlias, I just find a bunch of Battle VIP passes. So Tord's Battle VIP pass is going to get Ralts and a Radiant Greninja. The Radiant Greninja is great here because he still has that Psychic Energy in hand. So even though he might consider putting one on a Zacian, it is a little bit more valuable to get the full setup going by having the Radiant Greninja in play. If he can have that Radiant Greninja in play for at least a couple of turns, he can use that to discard Psychic Energies into the discard pile for use with the Psychic Embrace with the Gardevoir, but also so that he can find more Ralts and then more Kirlias after that. And as you can see, he draws Ralts off of that Greninja as well, so by, you know, going for the Greninja instead of double Ralts, he now still has the double Ralts. So pretty heads up by Tord there. You do still have a retreat, so if he had another Psychic Energy, I wouldn't have been opposed to him retreating the Mew into the Manaphy that he drew into and letting that die, forcing Pablo to maybe have a boss's orders for the turn. But of course, there was no additional energy in hand, and even if he did, he might want to conserve it for another concealed cards on the next turn. It is also good that Tord doesn't put down the Zacian until the turn he needs it to take the knockout, because if he were to just put the Zacian down this turn and do that play where I said he could attach to it and then use Roar of the Sword to it as well, then Pablo is just one boss away from taking 2 prize cards on his first turn, and that really sets Gardevoir back if they're taking 2 prize cards instead of 1. So Tord kind of playing it like a 1-prizer deck for now, until he can get the big one-shot with a Zacian later. Pablo is going to use his first Genesect to draw until he has 4 cards in hand. Does get a Judge. He did finally use that level ball. He used it to get the Mew VMAX, had the double turbo energy, and I believe he played the Choice Belt last turn, I want to say. But he is now able to get his attacker going. He also knows that he can set up a little bit slower against Gardevoir, since Gardevoir does take a couple of turns to get all of their stage 2s online. It's better to just guarantee the Mew VMAX on this second turn than to get the full 6 Pokemon in play and have to race, potentially waste some resources like the Path to the Peak that he had in hand previously. So we do have the Nest Ball here. We're going to search our deck for a basic Pokemon. Looks like we're going to get another Genesect to use this turn. So now we have 2 more Genesect abilities available. Also going to use a Feather Ball here. Feather Ball searches for a Pokemon that has a 0 retreat cost. So that would be Mew V or Mew V Max. I do like the idea of playing more Feather Balls as opposed to Nest Balls in Mew, because I always brick on the Nest Balls. I believe I've mentioned that in a previous round. Bricking on Nest Ball feels bad because you get your turn 1 setup with your Battle VIP passes, you have all 6 Pokemon in play, and then you just draw into Nest Balls, and then you can't play them because your bench is full. Even to fail it, you need a free bench spot, since it puts that Pokemon directly to the bench. Game State knows that you have a full bench, so it doesn't allow you to play Nest Ball. However, you can always play Feather Ball and fail it, because you just search for a Pokemon with no retreat and put it in your hand. So it looks like we got another Choice Belt down. The Choice Belts really shouldn't matter in this matchup at all. It really just helps the damage against Zacian, but Zacian normally damages itself anyway with Gardevoir's Psychic Embrace, so here we see the retreat. Here is the Path to the Peak as well. That does shut off Radiant Greninja, and if Tord has Rare Candy Gardevoir EX, both of those are now no longer on the table, unless Tord can replace the stadium. But I do believe he has a... No, he does not. I think he did have a collapsed stadium until Pablo judged it out of his hand. So now Tord's going to have to find a way to set up, but that judge was actually way better than just having the collapsed stadium in hand. Pablo's actually laughing that he just judged Tord into the nuts. Tord does attach to the Radiant Greninja, because you have to hard attach to your water Pokemon that you play in the deck. Psychic Embrace only works on Psychic-type Pokemon. Evolves double Ralts into double Kirlia, and then researches away a Battle VIP Pass, which of course you do not want to see. So now Tord still has 2 refinements he can use with these Kirlias to discard a card and draw 2 each time with those. So that's 11 cards deep he's seeing this turn, which is pretty good. He does draw back into that Cresselia that was judged back into his deck that he picked up with the penny. Just chooses to discard that because he feels he doesn't need that in this matchup. Most of the time, it's really just for Lost Box. It allows you to move damage counters from your Pokemon in play onto one of your opponent's Pokemon. So it's a real great, easy way to knock out Comphase and Sableye. You can heal your own Pokemon, get a bunch of energy in play over the course of multiple turns, and then make it so towards the end of the game, you're just attacking with a big full HP Gardevoir EX, and Lost Box doesn't really have anything to do. Lost Box matchup with Gardevoir is actually a little more 50-50 than you would think. It is unfavored, I would say, but if you play it right, you can really make it hard on Lost Box. So we are going to Level Ball here, get another Ralts into the rotation so that can become Kirlia or Gardevoir next turn. And yeah, Tord's getting the whole setup. He's still likely not going to be attacking this turn because, of course, all of his evolvable Pokemon turned into Kirlia this turn. No way for him to get a Gardevoir and no way to power up a Zacian. So we might see the Radiant Greninja have to stay active or go down. We are seeing the Collapse Stadium, so now we can use concealed cards as well, so that will be 13 cards deep. I'm pretty sure that's a different Collapse Stadium card than he got in trouble for playing in a previous tournament, if you guys noticed that. I think he was playing a regular Collapse Stadium in his list when it wasn't on his deck list, but it was in his deck, because I guess he didn't resubmit his list correctly, and he didn't get caught for the whole tournament somehow, even though he was on stream a couple times. But no deck list errors in this tournament for Tord, so we're not gonna have any issues with this Collapse Stadium. He gets 2 more Ralts down. So again, that's going to be potential for some Gardevoirs next turn. And the best part is that he will still be able to keep the Kirlias as well. He could always Rare Candy the Ralt straight into Gardevoir, and he can keep the Kirlias so that he continuously has more and more draw every single turn. Or he can evolve the Kirlias into Gardevoir and then the Ralts into Kirlias and then still have the same amount of draw. You can always use Refinement with the Kirlia to draw 2 and then evolve it into Shining Arcana Gardevoir, then use the Shining Arcana to draw 2 again. So you can draw 4 cards off of one Pokemon. So this Gardevoir deck can see very deep into the deck. There are a lot of times where by turn 4 or 5, I just have all of the cards in my deck in my hand or discard pile. Like, you just, like, find it, it's like, oh, now I have to Miriam cards back into my deck so I don't lose. Like, I don't want to deck myself out. Looks like it was just a pass from Tord to Pablo. Pablo is going to go in with the Judge to mitigate that large hand of Tord's, putting a lot of cards back into the deck, making him rebuild that hand yet again. It also can force some weird discards from Refinement. Sometimes your hand has too many good cards, but not what you need that turn, so you have to discard good cards with Refinement in order to dig deeper. That can sometimes happen, but you play enough Battle VIP passes, you'll probably redraw into those off the Judge. We do see Pablo does retreat. The Cross Fusion Strike attack from the Mew VMAX for the double turbo energy does copy one of your benched Pokemon. That's the one he's choosing to attack with most of the time. So he is using Cross Fusion Strike to copy Techno Blast, is what he did the previous turn, to do 190, so 210 minus the 20 from the double turbo. But Genesec's attack also says that you cannot attack next turn if you do that, so you do have to retreat into a different Pokemon. You can switch back with a Switch or a Switch Cart or an Escape Rope in order to put that same Mew back active. Putting a Pokemon from the active to the bench and then back to the active does reset any effects on it, like the you can't attack next turn effect. But now that he's retreated into a second Mew VMAX and has 2 Mew VMAXs in play, those can copy each other's max Miracle attack. So 130 minus 20 for the double turbo is 110. And it like shreds, like just like the attack on Giratina V and the attack on the Duraludon VMAX. It kind of ignores all effects on the opponent's Pokemon. So you you knock out stuff without having to sacrifice being able to attack on the next turn that way. Your damage output is substantially less, 80 less to be specific. But when you're knocking out Pokemon that only have 80 or less HP, that doesn't matter if you're hitting 110, right? So Max Miracle is pretty good here. So even though Pablo could have copied Technoblast and just retreated back into the original Mew, again, why, essentially force yourself to do that? You could potentially forget to retreat. Just copy the Max Miracle, and it leaves you to be less likely to make a mistake like that. So we are seeing the Fog Crystal here from Tord after promoting a Ralts. The Ralts is what you want to promote over the Kirlia because Ralts does have 1 retreat cost. This Ralts, also, if Tord is in a really bad spot, also has the Memory Skip attack. It does 10. And then makes your opponent's Pokemon forget one of its attacks for a turn. So again, that is something that would be reset by going back to the bench and then back to the active. But you can force some resources out of Pablo that way, at least. So you could tell Mew to forget the Cross Fusion Strike attack. So then it effectively becomes useless because it doesn't have the energy to use its Max Miracle. It costs 2 Psychic to do that. That's why you have to use Cross Fusion Strike to copy a second Mew VMAX's Max Miracle. And it would force Pablo into a position where he does have to retreat into the other Mew VMAX, but he has the other Mew VMAX set up right now. If Pablo maybe didn't have any Mew VMAX on the bench and the Path to the Peak was in play with Pablo having a small hand size, maybe the Memory Skip would actually buy you a turn that way. Oh, it looks like Pablo did use Technoblast. He just put a marker on his Mew to remind himself that he can't attack. So yeah, he did use Technoblast even though he could have Max Miracled. So that is a very minor misplay that will, in all likelihood, not matter in the slightest. And definitely makes it so Tord will not want to Memory Skip this turn. So we do see the Gardevoir EX is coming out, so that, again, Psychic Embrace will allow him to accelerate Psychic Energies from the discard pile to his Psychic Pokemon. Just damages them by 2 damage counters each time. So he can... Oh, he is going to Rare Candy into it. So he's just choosing whether or not he wants to Rare Candy the Ralts on the active or the bench. Looks like he's going to do the bench. You don't want to attack with the Gardevoir EX this turn if you have a choice, because you could potentially be one-shot by Mew VMAX if they play enough Power Tablets. You see, you do 190. Yeah, so if Pablo were to play all 4 Power Tablets in one turn, he could one-shot a Gardevoir EX from full HP. And most likely, Tord would have to use at least 2 Psychic Embrace instances in order to power up the Gardevoir, which would make it so Pablo needs 1 less Power Tablet. Because that would be 40 damage on the Gardevoir already. So then he'd only need 3. Now, very important to note that the Choice Belts do not actually add damage to the Gardevoir EX. The Choice Belts only work on Pokemon V and GX. And GXs are not currently in format. And yeah, Gardevoir EX may be a 2-prizer, it may be a Rollbox Pokemon, but it's not one of either of those 2 distinctions, so that's why I've actually been seeing a lot of lists online that people have been bringing to Cups and Challenges actually swap out the Choice Belts for Cleansing Gloves. Cleansing Gloves says you do 30 more to your opponent's active psychic Pokemon. So you sacrifice the ability to hit Vs harder in order to allow yourself to hit Gardevoir EX specifically harder. I mean, it works on Zacian too, but you rarely have to boost your damage to hit the Zacian, as I've said before. So we do see another level ball from Tord. He is looking at his very thin deck to see what is even left. Looks like he doesn't really have too many options in there. I don't even see the Zacian. Tord has one bench space remaining, so he could... Does he have the Zacian in hand? I think Tord's still struggling to find enough Psychic Energy to be able to one-shot the Mew VMAX. So this might actually be a turn where you do have to hit in with the Gardevoir EX, even though you wouldn't want to. Let's see. So you do base... So with both Gardevoir, the Shining Arcana, and the Zacian V, you do essentially the same attack. It's 60 plus 30 for every Psychic Energy on the Pokemon. So Gardevoir Shining Arcana does cap out at a lower amount because it has less HP. You can accelerate less energies to it. So at most, Gardevoir can get 6 energies on it from the Psychic Embrace, plus 1 for turn would be 7 energies times 3 would be 210, plus the base 60 is 270. And now you're still too short. So yeah, it looks like Tord is just going to hit for the smallest brainwave he can, which is just 3 energy that fulfills the full attack cost. Only damages itself by 60, so it is going to force Pablo to either get a bunch of tablets to Psychic Leap, or it is going to make it so he's going to have to retreat into the other one in Techno Blast again. So here's actually a world where Pablo using Techno Blast was a bigger misplay than originally intended, because if he... Oh, here's a fourth... Oh no, he's doing a fourth one. Okay, so there's 80 damage on the Gardevoir. So that is... How much HP left? 60? So it will require Pablo to have 1 power tablet in order to take the knockout with Psychic Leap. But he can't Psychic Leap with his active because he used Techno Blast last turn. He can't attack this turn. So now he has to retreat, and that'll leave that damage in play on the Gardevoir. So had he used Max Miracle last turn, he would just be able to go Power Tablet, Psychic Leap, put the Mew back into his deck. He could promote whatever he wants. If Pablo was playing Oricorio, which I don't believe he is, that would be the perfect promotion there. But he could always just put up the other Mew VMAX and try to tank another hit that way as well. But the thing that Pablo really wants to do this turn is the... I think... Let's see. Yeah, I think he's going to need all 4 power tablets. Yeah, I think he has to go boss quad power tablet this turn, hit into the Gardevoir EX. But even if he does do that, Tord can just evolve into another one. So actually, Pablo's in a really rough position now. Like, it doesn't seem like it, but it is. Because even if he does Psychic Leap and heal all that damage, like, who's he promoting? The other Mew VMAX, which could potentially get one-shot on this next turn? You gotta think, with the refinements and the Shining Arcana that Tord has, he can see 6 cards deeper. His deck was probably less than 10 cards, or maybe was 10 cards. He'll be able to see at least 1 or 2 of those Psychic Energies that were in his deck. There were 3 left. Yeah, it just really depends on where Tord's Zacian situation is at, if they're both in the prize cards right now or not. But I think Tord can definitely make this board state work for him. That Gardevoir EX just has too much HP for Mew to be able to handle here. And again, that is why people are playing the Cleansing Gloves, because they have just an easier time dealing with regular, you know, VMAX and V-Star Pokemon these days than they do in EX that has 310 base HP. It also goes to show that Tord knows exactly what he's doing in this matchup. Even though he gave Pablo 2 free prize cards before he even did his first attack, his first attack is applying such incredible pressure to Pablo right now that I'm not even sure what Pablo can do to try to rectify that situation. I mean, again, the best thing to do would be to Psychic Leap that damage off. So now Pablo's going to have to... I know what he has to do. So Pablo has to retreat and then switch back into the Mew VMAX, since he used Techno Blast on the last turn. Play 1 Power Tablet, Psychic Leap itself back into the deck, promote the other Mew VMAX, all while putting Path into play as well, so that the Gardevoir EX cannot accelerate any more energy into play. So that makes Zacian a non-factor, especially since these Gardevoir decks tend to only play 2 stadiums and a worker. Although we've only seen 1 stadium out of Tord so far, so he could potentially have all of that still. So we are going to Fog Crystal here. Oh, there's more than that in his deck now for sure. Maybe 15 cards. So we do see another Psychic Energy. There is 1 more left in the deck. There is the Worker and the Temple of Sinnoh both in the deck. Tord is eyeing those up right now. He knows he needs those. Yeah, Pablo missing the stadium here was probably the biggest downside, because now Tord gets 1 more turn's use out of this Collapse Stadium. The Collapse Stadium is also really good against Pablo here because it did make it so there is 1 less Pokemon in play for him, so that's 1 less Genesect he can potentially use to draw every turn. So if you're Tord here, you're probably wanting to boss this turn if you can, to take the 3 prizes on the Mew. But that does open you up to a Roxanne. So do you maybe just hit for 190 this turn onto the active Mew? And then let your opponent just hit into your Gardevoir EX? Looks like that's where he's going for. I don't think that that's bad. So he has, it should be 190 to that active Mew VMAX. There we go, they fixed it. Now we're seeing another Force Sealstone come down to the Genesect V on the bench, so all but 1 Pokemon have tools on them for Pablo. That's likely all of the tools in his deck, in all honesty. Pablo's trying to think of if he wants to judge. Looks like he's going to Echoing Horn the Manaphy up first. That is a dead card to Tord, so he does not necessarily want that in play, especially when Collapse Stadium is in play. That means he only has 1 open bench spot for literally anything. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that Path has just, like, not existed this entire match so far. These players are also playing under the extended timer of being in Top Cut, so they still have almost 50 minutes remaining, which is normally what you play with in Swiss. And these players cannot tie since it is top 4. One of these players does have to go to the finals, so it will be on prize cards if it ends up going to a Game 3. Either that, or if they're shuffling up for Game 3 when time is called, they go to sudden death, where it's just first prize takes it, which is a very interesting situation to be in. I like that it's just first prize taken instead of only put out 1 prize, which is what it used to be, because I've lost to playing end turn 1 to end both players to 1 and my opponent drawing Shaman EX, which is basically Crobat, but you can use it multiple times a turn. And then my opponent just taking 1 easy prize, so sudden death's always a fun thing to encounter in a game. It doesn't happen very often. Yeah, so again, if you're Pablo, I think I would want to evolve my... Well, this is the rough spot. So you want to Psychic Leap and promote another Mew VMAX to be able to take a hit, but you can't, because your active would have to evolve into a Mew VMAX, and you don't have the bench space to put another Mew V down. Looks like he is going to Lost Vacuum the stadium, so now he can bench another Mew V, but he is going to go with a Genesect instead, which is more realistic. But now Pablo's really going to have to get a lot of mileage out of these two already damaged Mews. He could always shuffle one back in with a Psychic Leap at some point and promote a Genesect and let it just go down. It does not have Psychic resistance, surprisingly. It has Grass resistance. So we are going to see the Path to the Peak this turn. We are going to retreat back into a... looks like the one that has 180 damage on it instead of the one that has 190 damage on it. Not that it matters. Either one of these goes down to one swing from the Gardevoir EX. We are going to take a single prize on that Manaphy. Yeah, so it is a little rough that Pablo did put the Manaphy into play with the Echoing Horn, because then Tord was just able to put the Manaphy straight up when Pablo played Escape Rope there. And now Pablo takes a prize on what was the most useless Pokemon on the board here for Tord, leaving him with both of those Kirlias and the Gardevoir EX. So that may have been a misplay as well, knowing that one of your outs to retreat was the Escape Rope. Maybe you just hold the Echoing Horn and judge it back into your deck. Yeah, because I believe that Tord doesn't even have a Zacian in the discard at all either. So we are seeing an attach to the Kirlia on the bench, Sky Seal Stone to the Gardevoir EX, and then a Judge. So the Sky Seal Stone is completely useless in this game. You could knock out a Genesect and then take a 4-prize one-shot on a Mew VMAX with Zacian, but that is not in the wheelhouse for Tord right now. And since both of these Mew VMAXs are already damaged, taking an additional prize card on one of those two doesn't matter, because knocking both of those out will still win you the game anyway. So put down the Sky Seal Stone now, just to thin it out of your deck before the Judge, so that then you can draw as many cards as possible, more live cards as possible, both off of the Judge and off of these two refinements that you have access to. Tord does also only play one Shining Arcana Gardevoir, so that is already in the discard pile for him. We see he does have at least 2 researches in hand, so he does discard one of those with the second refinement. Tord has a hand of supporters, a stadium, and an Illuminion. So he's gonna probably play it off like his hand is kind of dead, because he just refinemented and then didn't do anything with the cards in hand. Even left the Path to the Peak in play to make sure Pablo has the less odds of being able to get whatever he wants this turn. And Tord does have the ability to just replace that stadium or worker it away on this next turn, because he has both the stadium and the worker in hand right now. So kind of funny that Tord is actually using Pablo's path to his own advantage in this situation, since Tord's a little bit more in the driver's seat right now. So we do see Pablo does use a Nest Ball, gets out that other Mew V now. And yeah, at this point, what do you do? I think you want to Psychic Leap and hit the Gardevoir, maybe? Pablo does have 2 prizes remaining. So if he can knock out the Gardevoir this turn, that would be really good. But again, you'd have to play like Quad Power Tablet. And do you even have the ability to do that? Is there a single one in the... Even if there's one in the discard pile, Pablo does not have access to that. Looks like he is going to boss the Gardevoir back up. What you could do is you could boss the Gardevoir up, and then you Psychic Leap, putting the entire Mew VMAX back into your deck. You do 50 chip damage to that Gardevoir, and now you have no 3 prizers in play, which makes it so Tord actually can't win off of this. So even if he were to take a knockout on any of the Pokemon that Pablo would have in play, But he's not going for that. He's going to go for a knockout on the Kirlia instead, it looks like. So that's not bad either. You could do it either way. This is probably the more correct route because you do make it so that's one less card that Tord can use to draw more cards. And that Gardevoir, I mean, one of those two Kirlias could evolve into another Gardevoir EX anyway. And if you just hit into the Gardevoir EX that's already in play, you're just making it harder on yourself. So yeah, I mean, either way, you just find another boss next turn, and either way, it doesn't matter. But this way, it makes it so Tord's cut off from drawing even more cards. So I do like taking out the Kirlia better. But now, again, Tord could evolve this Kirlia into a Gardevoir, and now Pablo still has to take another 2-prize knockout in order to win the game. So, yeah, if I were Tord, I would use the Refinement now, and then try to find the other Gardevoir EX and evolve. And do you leave Path to the Peak in play? I think you do, because you go always attach from hand again, but I don't think Tord has any energy left. So this is an odd position where you would want to have your abilities this turn. And here it is. Here's the Gardevoir EX that Tord was saying. So yeah, maybe it was better to do that play I originally said, where you just hit into this Gardevoir that's currently active with the Psychic Leap to do 50. And then you need the bosses, just one more boss's orders the next turn. But I'm not sure what Pablo's boss count is remaining, if he has those resources available to him. He also does need the stadium removed. Pablo does have the Lost Vacuum in hand, so he can accomplish that. So if you're Tord, maybe replace the stadium anyway, but he doesn't know that Pablo has the out to it in hand already. We are also seeing an Ultra Ball. Tord's just trying to thin his hand of as many cards that are useless as possible, so that he, oh, Tord's like, oh, look, my deck is one card. Would you like to cut? With a smirk on his face. That's the same type of shit I do, too. Yeah, because let's see. If there was 50 more damage on this active Gardevoir EX, so that's 70 damage on it. That would be 240 HP remaining. Then you'd need 2 power tablets to knock it out, instead of 4. So yeah, maybe, yeah, Tord definitely should have done that. Or Pablo should have definitely done that against Tord. Also, why do these headsets just have insane amounts of tape on them? Are they covering the brands that the headsets are from? Or are they just that falling apart? Because honestly, with this company, with the Pokemon Company International, it could literally be either way. Looks like Pablo is going to Lost Zone his own Path to the Peak with the Lost Vacuum, getting rid of another boss's orders, has 1 power tablet, and if he did the play that I mentioned in the previous turn, would only need 1 more power tablet this turn along with the Mew VMAX in order to win the game. So let's see if he would have gotten there. He can draw 2 more cards off of this next Genesect, and he has not used his V-Star power yet. So if he has another power tablet in deck, all he needs to do is off of one of these next 2 Genesects is evolve and get a Mew VMAX or a power tablet. You use your Forest Seal Stone to get the other one. Then you take the knockout on this active Gardevoir. And you would have had the boss as well, because you already had that in hand. So even if Tord retreated his active Gardevoir and put up the other Gardevoir that's on the bench and attacked with that one instead, because it would have had more HP, you could use the boss to bring that back up. And yeah, Pablo could have had the game this turn. And there was another power tablet in deck. See, and multiple Ultra Balls still as well. So yeah, I definitely think that there was a world where Pablo won this game, but he punted it. Yeah, because he's got to know that Tord has to play 2 Gardevoir EX, right? So do you believe that Tord just leaves both of those Kirlias on the bench unevolved? Especially if you take out one? Like, Tord definitely evolves the other one then. But if you just hit into the one Gardevoir EX, then there's 2 Curlias on the bench. You could evolve one of them into a Gardevoir EX, but the other one that you just Psychic Leaped into would still be in play. Again, not saying that knocking out the Curlia was a wrong play, it was just the less right play in this situation since Tord had access to the second Guardia EX. And we've already seen every card that Pablo would have needed to win the game already from these hands. I know he rock sand to get some of those cards. He would have just had to get one of the 2 cards he needed off of. And nope, Pablo just manages to unpunt himself and get the quad power tablet turn. So yeah, Pablo definitely should have lost that, but he managed to get it anyway. So, I mean, sometimes you power tablet and sometimes you don't. I was fully expecting Pablo to lose there. I'm a little afraid to wait. This ends in 2 minutes? Pokemon, what the heck? Are we only gonna see game 1? Really? Really? Yeah, this is the end of the game, the whole match on the stream. Yeah, it just ends, like, out of nowhere. And then goes right on to Championship Sunday. So, well, spoiler alert, Tord won the match. But that's all we got, so hope you guys enjoyed game 1 of that, since I don't know what happened. This is, like, what was it, both streams in a row where this happened? I don't, because they cut off another one of the matches, too. That's stupid. I'm a little annoyed, because I wanted to actually see how that turned out. I know Tord won, I know he goes to the finals. But I hope everybody enjoyed what was available. Do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying these videos. And I guess we will see you guys next time for the finals. How does Pokemon just lose 2 games? Like every round? I don't